The village of Hollow Grave sat buried beneath centuries of moss and memory. Narrow cobbled paths wound through time-worn cottages with sagging roofs, and ancient ivy clung to every stone like fingers unwilling to let go. Fog drifted endlessly, here, coiling around fences and forgotten tombs as though it, too, remembered what had been buried. No one entered the graveyard after dusk. It was not just tradition, it was fear. They said the dead, whispered there, said that once, long ago, a priest had lit candles for the souls of the unburied, and in doing so, became something less than man and more than myth. But Eira Wren, the village's quiet herbalist, had never been one to fear whispers, especially not the ones that echoed in her dreams. The letter arrived with no postmark, bound in brittle string, and sealed with black wax stamped in a symbol no one in the village could name. Eira had found it resting on the sill of her apothecary window just before dawn, the sky still a deep gray bruise, the village still caught in sleep. She broke the seal with hesitant fingers. When the veil thins, one must tend the flame. The forgotten call your name, you will know where to go. Bring the light. There was no signature, only a faint scent, damp earth and old candles. She should have burned the letter. Instead, she folded it into her cloak pocket and whispered to no one. I dreamed of him again. The villagers often whispered about her too, the strange girl in the cottage near the woods, the one who spoke to trees and left offerings on her windowsill. Some said she was a witch, others said she was touched by grief. They were all a little right. Dreams of the keeper's dreams had begun at the year's turning, when winter's breath stretched longest. In them, Eira stood at the gate of the graveyard, watching a cloaked figure drift between crumbling gravestones. He moved like mist, leaving behind a trail of flickering candles. No face, no voice, only the soft, steady glow of his lantern. And always, he would stop, turn to her, and hold out a single flame. She had woken every night since with the same ache in her chest. Something was unfinished. Crossing the threshold, the graveyard lay behind the chapel ruins, where moss-fed walls sagged inward, and the bell tower stood cracked like a bone snapped wrong. Iron gates, rusted through, creaked open when Eira approached, though she hadn't touched them. Wind whispered her name. She wore a dark cloak and carried nothing but a beeswax candle and the black sealed letter. The air inside the graveyard felt older than breath. Ivy carpeted the paths, curling over graves so worn their names had been consumed by time. Some stones leaned like they wept, others were toppled, buried in moss and mud. Then she saw him, the figure in the cloak, just as in her dreams, knelt beside a crooked headstone, lighting a candle from his lantern. The flame flickered golden, soft against the deep blue dusk. He rose slowly, turned, and faced her. No face, only shadow beneath the hood. But not cold, not cruel. Without a word, he extended his hand. In it, a flame, small, flickering, waiting. Her breath caught. Something in her bones knew this was a choice. Eira stepped forward and cupped her candle to his. The wick hissed, then blazed, not with fire, but with light the color of memory. Green and gold, alive. At that moment, wind rushed past, and somewhere behind her, a tomb creaked open with a groan like old sorrow. A name from the past candle in her hand flared brighter. Her fingers trembled. And then, without knowing why, Eira whispered, Eira Wren. The name tasted of ash and rain. It had been years since she'd spoken it. Her mother's name. The flame surged. A voice, low and distant, echoed from the tombs. Eira, child of the broken oath. Why have you returned? She staggered back, candle nearly slipping from her fingers. The keeper remained motionless, a silent sentry to grief. The wind died. Silence fell, and then the cloaked figure vanished, gone like breath from a mirror. Eira stood alone in the graveyard, candle still burning, flame unnaturally steady. Returning to the living, she did not remember walking home, but in the morning, when she awoke, the candle still burned at her bedside. No wax had melted, no scent of smoke. And next to it, Beneath the black sealed letter lay a single line scrawled in ink: "Light the names that time has swallowed, or they will come to claim their own." Eira looked to the window. Fog pressed against the glass. Ivy curled tighter around the cottage walls. The graveyard had waited centuries. But now now it had called her, and she had answered. For 3 nights after her first visit, Eira could not sleep. The candle still burned beside her bed, flame untouched by time or wind. Even in the stillness of her cottage, it flickered with a life of its own, whispering something just beyond hearing. Every shadow seemed to lean closer now. The woods behind her home no longer sang with birds, and even her herbs wilted early. The veil had been brushed open, and something had passed through. She returned to the graveyard on the 4th night, not because she was brave, but because she knew she had to. Graves of the unnamed. It was colder now. The graveyard no longer felt abandoned. It breathed. Candles marked some graves, small lights flickering like heartbeat lanterns. But others, hundreds, remained shrouded in silence. The lantern keeper waited near the center, standing beside a low stone with no name. As before, he held out a candle, but this time, when Eira reached for it, he spoke. His voice was deep and hollow, as if shaped from wind through old stone. "You see the ones who are left behind. You hear them now." Eira swallowed the chill in her throat. "What do they want? To be seen, to be named, to be remembered." He turned and began walking. She followed him through rows of crooked stones and crumbling mausoleums. As they walked, he lit more candles, each time whispering a name she could not fully hear. Eira noticed something strange. When each candle was lit, the air grew warmer, softer. A breeze would carry the scent of violets or pine, as if some part of the soul had lifted. And every time the flame caught, she saw a glimpse, a figure, a child, a woman, a soldier, watching her before fading. "These are the forgotten," the keeper said, "victims of betrayal, buried in silence. The curse keeps them restless until the final light is kindled." She turned to him. "The curse, the one I made." The keepers passed in a quiet clearing between graves. The keeper stopped and knelt. "I was once called Elias, a priest of Hollow Grave, long before the rot set in." His voice no longer echoed, it trembled. "When the plague came, the rich fled. I stayed. I buried them, one by one, until the soil turned black and my faith turned with it. But a man alone cannot carry death without becoming hollow." He touched the flame of his lantern. "It didn't burn him. I made a bargain with a thing older than light. I asked to never forget those I buried. It gave me eternity, but bound me here, keeper of their grief." Eira listened in stunned silence. "Why? Show me this now," she whispered. "Because I'm weakening. The veil thins, and the bargain must be passed, or broken." Bloodline secrets that night. Eira searched through her mother's old chest, the one she had never opened since the fire. Inside, wrapped in yellowed lace, she found records, birth certificates, letters, and a family crest. The name Eira Wren was scrawled in faded ink. Her breath caught. The lantern keeper was not just a stranger. He was family, her ancestor. The curse ran in her blood. No wonder the dead whispered her name. The waking haunt following days blurred. Wherever she went, shadows followed. Candle flames at her cottage sputtered when she spoke the names of the dead. The villagers grew uneasy. They whispered more than usual. A child screamed when she walked by, claiming a ghost was inside her eyes. She dreamt of a great pit in the graveyard, wide enough to swallow the village, and from it crawled things that were the faces of those she'd lit candles for, only twisted, hungry, hollow. She awoke screaming, blood dripping from her nose, the candle beside her flaring violently, the blind seer's warning desperate for clarity. Eira visited old Marla, the blind woman who lived on the outskirts, a rumored seer who had once buried her own son in Hollow Grave. Marla listened silently as Eira recounted the dreams, the keeper, the candles. Then she spoke with a voice cracked by sorrow. "You are being prepared, girl. You are to inherit the flame, or extinguish it forever. But if you fail, if you light to many without understanding the end, they will all rise. And not alone. Eira asked, "What's the end?" The seer's dead eyes turned toward her as if seen through veils. The hollow is not just a grave, it's a mouth. And it remembers every soul that went in without a name. When the last forgotten soul is lit, the one that caused it all returns, a choice of. Flamira returned to the graveyard one final time that week, determined to confront the keeper. The lantern in his hand burned low. "I've lit 14 flames," she said, "and each one calls louder than the last. Who is the final soul?" The keeper stared at her for a long time. "Mine. Or yours." She felt her stomach drop. "The curse ends when one of us finishes the task. The last soul must be lit by the final keeper, but the one who lights it will not leave." He held out the lantern. "Take it, Eira, carry the flame, or break the line." Her hands shook. "I don't know how." "You will. When the hollow opens. You must." She took the lantern. It was warm. To warm. And in that moment, a deep rumble echoed beneath the earth, as if something ancient had just stirred. The lantern burned in Eira's hands with unnatural steadiness. Its flame never flickered in wind, never waned in rain. But with every name she whispered and every candle she lit in the graveyard, the world around her began to shift, subtly, then sharply. The veil between the living and the dead was thinning, and it was her doing. The cost of memory ignite. She lit another candle and whispered a name, and with each flame, visions came, a soldier bleeding in the snow, a child calling for a mother who never came, a woman clutching a locket and sinking into the earth. Eira felt their sorrow bloom in her chest. The more she gave light to the dead, the more the living turned from her. Shops closed early when she passed, doors bolted without a sound. Only old Marla still spoke to her, warning, "You're not just remembering them, you're binding them to yourself. And when the last flame is lit, they won't let you go." Eira lit the 20th candle that night, and then came the voice, deeper than before. It didn't echo from a grave. It came from below. "You carry his flame, girl, but you carry our hunger too." She ran home, lantern clutched tight, its light dimming for the first time, the ritual book rummaging through her mother's old possessions. She found something hidden beneath floorboards, wrapped in black linen and sealed with wax. An ancient tome, the Book of Severance. On its cover, a sigil identical to the one on the first letter. Inside, the text bled between Latin and a language she couldn't name, but she understood its meaning. There was a way to sever the lantern keeper's curse, a ritual, a circle of graves, the blood of the bound, the final flame lit in silence. And the origin soul sacrificed. She turned the page, her hand trembled. "Only one of blood can close what blood once opened." Eira whispered aloud, "Me." She was the descendant of Elias, the priest who made the original oath. She was the only one who could end it. But to do so, she would need to give up more than her name. She would need to bleed into the hollow itself. The rise of the hollow signs came quickly. The graveyard. Soil cracked. Ivy began to move like serpents on the stones. Fog rolled in at all hours, thick as wool, muting even the sun. And in the silence of the graveyard, a hole had opened, vast, gaping, pulsing, a pit at the heart of the dead, the hollow. From its edge, Eira could hear the souls she'd lit weeping, begging, chanting her name. Eira of the Wren blood light the last. Set us free. But deeper in the hollow, she felt another presence, larger, hungrier, ancient. The Vicar of Hollow. Not the priest, not her ancestor. Something else. The forgotten pact. Lantern keeper appeared once more, this time without his lantern. He knelt beside her as she stood at the hollow's edge. "I failed them," he whispered. "I asked to remember, but I forgot. My oath. I forgot love." I returned to him, voice shaking. "What is the Vicar?" He closed his hooded face. "It was the price of the pact. A devourer. It feeds on forgotten names, and I fed it. By failing them, Now it waits for you. If you light the final candle, it will rise. Eira stepped back. Then I won't. I'll destroy the flame. I'll burn the book. But the keeper stopped her. It's too late. The moment you took the lantern, it began. The only choice now is who faces it. You can run, or you can stand. The lantern's flame flared green in her hands. She chose to stand, preparing the ritual that night. Eira returned to the graveyard with a dagger, salt, and the ritual markings etched onto linen. She poured a circle of salt around the hollow dot lit 24 candles, one for each soul she had named Dot, and stood at the center. Lantern before her, book at her feet. Then she slit her palm and let the blood fall into the soil. The earth groaned, flames roared upward. From the hollow, something stirred. The climax begins, air split with a shriek, not of a man, but of 1,000 voices in agony. The vicar rose, a form of smoke and bone and cloth, towering and ancient, its face a mirror of the first soul lost. Eyes hollow, mouth endless. Dot, it reached toward the flames. The keeper appeared beside Eira one last time. We are not enough, but together, we might be. He removed his cloak and cast it around her. His essence flowed into the lantern. Eira screamed as the flame surged inside her, tearing through flesh and memory. She became more than living. She became the flame itself. The vicar lunged, but the candles exploded with light, and the names she had spoken rose from the earth. Ghosts of those she had freed circled the hollow, singing. Their voices cut the vicar like blades. The ground shook. Dot and Eira, burning like a star, stepped into the pit and thrust the lantern into the vicar's chest. Silence. There was no scream, only sudden, deep silence. Then, a pulse. The hollow imploded into itself. The grave stilled. The air cleared, and the fog never returned. Eira was gone, but her candle remained, still burning. At the edge of the stone, the earth was quiet, the graveyard of Hollow grave, once writhing with whispering souls and creeping fog, now lay still beneath the pale light of dawn. No ivy moved, no wind stirred, and yet, the candle at the pit's edge still burned. The flame, though small, was unnatural, its color a soft gold tinged with green, like sunlight caught in memory. It marked the place where Eira Wren had vanished. No one had seen her since that night. The villagers, those who once feared her, spoke only in hushed tones now. The hollow has closed, they said. The dead sleep again. But the story did not end there. A year later, snow dusted the crooked rooftops of Hollow grave. A pale moon hovered over bare trees, and silence once again ruled the land. A stranger arrived just after dusk, a traveler wrapped in a tattered wool cloak. Face hidden beneath the wide hood, he carried with him only a leather satchel, a small oil lamp, and a single yellow flower. He asked no one for directions. Instead, he walked straight to the old graveyard gates, which had long since rested shut. But when he approached, they creaked open. As if expecting him, he stepped through. The return of the Flamethir were new gravestones now, freshly carved, lovingly maintained. The candles that once marked them were gone, replaced by etched symbols of peace. Yet one figure stood between the rows, cloaked in black, still as stone. The hood hid her face, but in her hands she held a lantern. Its flame danced quietly, golden and green, casting gentle halos across the tombs. She turned slowly as the stranger approached. For a moment, he thought she was just another spirit. But then she spoke, her voice calm as still water. You brought a flower. The stranger nodded. For someone I lost. She was buried without a name. The lantern woman stepped aside and gestured toward the back row. Then let us give her one. He followed, and they stopped before a crumbled grave. No inscription, just old stone and ivy. The woman knelt, lit a small candle from her lantern, and placed it upon the grave. Speak her name, she said. His voice cracked. Lena. The flame flared gently. A soft breeze passed between them. The lantern pulsed once in response, and then stilled. The woman whispered, She knows now. She can rest. The keeper's legacy stranger turned to her. Who are you? The hood shifted slightly. The last keeper, The one who chose the flame, he blinked. Eira, she nodded slowly, but her eyes, when they lifted to meet his, were no longer just human, they shimmered faintly with light. I became what he could not finish, she said, not bound by curse, but by choice. This place needed a witness, a watcher, a name-giver, so they would never be forgotten again. The stranger fell silent, awed. Why stay? He asked. She looked out across the tombs, voice barely a whisper. Because the hollow never dies, it only sleeps. And should it wake again, it must find me waiting. The whisper beneath the roots later, that night, after the stranger left, I remained beneath the moonlight, lantern in hand, walking between stones. She knew the hollow was not gone, only sealed. Deep beneath the graveyard, the ancient roots still stirred in dreams. The vicar was gone? Yes, but there were other things, darker, older, waiting in the cracks between worlds, and she had become the flame that kept them at bay. As she paused before one final grave, her mother's, now fully restored and marked with the name Wren, she knelt and pressed a hand to the soil. The earth pulsed. Not with danger, but with memory. She smiled. I kept my promise. Final image of last candle of the evening flickered to life. And in the distance, on the far hill above hollow grave, a child wandering the woods paused and looked down. They swore they saw a woman in black, walking between the graves, her lantern glowing like a second moon, and though they couldn't explain why, they felt safe. Epilogue: legends grew around hollow grave. They spoke of the lantern keeper who walked among the dead, not in sorrow, but in reverence. Not to mourn, but to remember. Some claimed the keeper was a ghost, others said she was a priestess of the old gods. Only a few knew the truth, that once, a young woman chose to carry a flame meant to consume her, and instead used it to light the way for every soul left behind. And that is why the lantern still burns, because some stories refuse to be forgotten. If you believe forgotten stories deserve to be remembered, if you feel a chill when a candle flickers in the dark, then you belong here. Subscribe now, and walk with us through the shadows, one tale at a time.